Berlin.
Hello, welcome Berlin. Greetings from Potsdam. Some more background on me. Before I moved to Potsdam, I worked 4 years within the W3C in the so-called internationalization activity, and you will hear some parts of it here in my talk. So let me start with a question. Who does not know W3C here in the room? Good. Oh, at least one. Okay. So W3C is an organization for standardizing web technology. Bits you use every day, even if you're not aware of it, like HTML for web pages, CSS for layout, closely related to things like HTTP for web servers and so on. And what I'm going to talk about is about opportunities for language technology on the web. First, let me start. What is the multilingual web? I would say multilingual web is the result of a process, the result of creating information in various languages, even if you don't think about language technology. It requires that you prepare yourself for processing that information adequately for the audiences. And preparing yourself for multilinguality, that is what internationalization is doing for several years already. So in classical internationalization, multilinguality means allow people to use a character encoding like Unicode, so that they can use characters from whatever script they want. To use bidirectional text, for example, for languages like Hebrew or Arabic. Or to use language-specific layout, a topic which is very hot now for languages like Chinese or Japanese who want to use vertical text on the web, and so on. So what you need to do for this classical internationalization, you need to prepare your systems that they can deal with this kind of stuff. And systems means, for example, offering systems, content management systems, web servers, mobile browsers, and so on. So what does this have to do with our meeting today? So my vision is that language technology can become a part of a multilingual web, the same as traditional internationalization is a part of a multilingual web. That is, that offering systems, servers, browsers, and whatever piece of infrastructure you can think of on the web is ready for what language technology can give them. We have already taken in W3C, a step in this direction, preparing metadata for multilingual web. This step is called ITS, the Internationalization Tech Set, and you see the bridge to internationalization just in the name. It provides metadata like about translation, to show what pieces of content should be translated or not, or terminology. What piece of content is a term, what is not a term, or elements within text. What text flow properties do you have in web content? How can this now be applied for language technology? Imagine translate. If a machine translation would know what pieces of content should be translated or not, then it would of course get far better results. If a system would know about terminology, many language technology tasks like terminology extraction, named entity recognition, and so on, would get better results. You could use additional information in a standard way like external terminology databases. Or elements within text, that's used for text flow, as I said, for text flow property description. If it's again, say, machine translation system or spell check system, would have a standard way to know in web content, for example, here I have a footnote, here I have a sentence, we have this embedding relation, then of course the segmentation of both, which is a prerequisite for this kind of processing, would be much more reliable. So this is the current state which is already possible, and it's just a question of time when this will be rightly deployed. So, but now for my dreams, as these 2 days are about dreams, is first to have this kind of information available in more areas. Currently it is focusing on things like XML, but what is described here are so-called data categories, nothing specific to XML, which say, so this is what I mean by translatability, this is what I mean by terminology. So having this defined precisely in this sense allows it to apply it to different kinds of data. For example, RDF for the linked data web, to say what parts of a global graph should be translated or not. HTML for web pages, Word, PDF for other formats which need this on the web. Or for different parts of the web ecosystem. For the browser, for offering tools, content management system. Imagine, for example, you would be able to have an HTTP to send a request saying within this request I want the server to use this kinds of translation settings in a standardized way. That would be one vision. So that part of vision is with the means I just described before, just have them used somewhere else. But the second dream is to have IDS or something else just as a hook to bridge the gap between language technology and web infrastructure. What we had several times in the last 2 days, I think, is the statement that we have developed really, really cool systems, but we're not deployed. We're not used in many real usage scenarios. So, and one means, I think, to get this deployment done is to move this technology closer to the large information system we use every day, to the web. So to have, for example, one idea for a vision, to have metadata about how grammars, lexica, machine translations tools, or other parts of what language technology offers work in web standards like HTML. For example, imagine, for example, that you would have a method in the DOM, in the document object model, which allows you to say, I want to translate something, I want to do an error correction, I want to do a tokenization, and so on. So moving everything which is currently scattered in, so to say, silo systems closer to web technology. This technology is of course applied in content management systems, servers, browsers, and so on. So in that sense, language technology would not be on the web. This is what we're currently having with language resources being created. We're now on the web, we're available as services, but they would be part of the web. They would be really part of the web infrastructure. That is the vision I want here to share with you. So what could the benefit be of realizing this vision? Well, you could reach a long tail of the diversity of a multilingual society. And that relates, I think, very good to the last talk we just heard. It relates to visions yesterday. We heard from the Chlorine project where we had more and more specific users of the web. I want to have here one scenario to make clear what I mean. Imagine you have an earthquake where a doctor who doesn't understand a patient's language and he can't wait for a human translator or a machine translation system translator. He needs to be able to plug in language resources with all he just has, with maybe, well, who's here? With his mobile phone. And he needs to be able to put in his preferences directly in his mobile phone, saying, okay, I'm a doctor, I'm in country X, Y, Z, I'm in this situation, give me information I need for the translation with this patient in this situation. So again, this is not availability of language technology on the web. This is not just language technology as a service, but it means language technology in the web, in the web technology itself, HTML, and so on, to build these applications from scratch as needed. You might also call this just-in-time language technology for the scenarios which you need. So is this a small task? Is this something which you could say, okay, the sysadmin guy could just work on how to realize this in DOM with some nice JavaScript or so? I would say clearly no. This is really a 10-year or even longer project because many, many players have to work together. You have language resource developers, standardizers of language resources. Many of them have worked in ISO for a long time to develop formats for language resources like the lexical markup framework, for example. So having a description, a common agreement how to represent lexical resources, let's say in JavaScript, in the JSON format, which is the JavaScript format, that would be really a cool means to have taken off lexical markup framework on the whole web. Language tool technology developers need to implement such descriptions, other metadata on the tools like what I described before, and making their tools to work with the web technology part, with the HTML, the DOM, CSS, HTTP, and so on. And another very important part, the localization industries, they need to be aware of workflows which are now possible with these new means, to be applied to browsers, to servers, and so on, for just-in-time application of language technology. Well, if you know localization industry, you might say, well, I mean, there's STL trawlers, everybody is using that, so who would ever use this kind of stuff? Well, I would say, of course, there are such silo software solutions, but for the more and more specific scenarios, where I just gave an example before, these solutions don't work, because you need just-in-time often be able to combine your resources, and to be able to do that, you need the language technology just inside the browser, not on a silo tool which the single company would provide. And after all, the web industry is necessary to glue this all together, to make sure it works in the technologies we are aiming at. And last but in no means least, societies are necessary. Europe, of course, is here great aim, but if you think of a society in India where you have many, many languages, official, non-official, you have more and more requirements to realize things like this on the web, in web technology itself, to have such long-tail application scenarios like what I just described. So where could this happen? I think it is partially already happening here. The MetaNet project itself is, I think, a step in the right direction. I think it is a step, if I grasp the atmosphere here, from the academic community to the industries, to the localization industry, to the web industry. And there's another project started from W3C called the Multilingual Web project, which is maybe taking the other way around. It's starting from these industries, from the web technology industry and from the localization industry, to merge ideas how to integrate more research results more easily. So my dream would be here that, well, these projects are, as usual, projects funded for some time, and when they end and you think what comes out of it, my dream would be here that both these projects could work closely together to build a path to a sustainable activity, something I might call a language technology working group within W3C, with the aim language technology not on, but language technology as part of the web. So that is, so to say, the main message I want to convey here with vision. Well, is this totally unrealistic? No, I would say we have similar things already in very specific parts. We have the W3C Voice Browser Working Group, who has focused on voice technology here, and which is a place for speech technology on the web already, also with many contributions from DFKI, for example. And we have a place here where research and application development meets very fruitfully. And after all, we have the semantic web, where many results of artificial intelligence came into the web, and again, where research and application development meets in a very nice way. So I think, yes, it can be done, and I think now is a very good timing where all players in this area of language technology, localization industry, and web technology are interested to get this done. So, yes, let's just try it. Thank you.
So, Felix Sasaki, thank you very much. Language technology marries the web. Do we have questions?
More of a comment. I actually love this idea. It's, how shall I put it? I'm tired of selling software. I'm tired of trying to convince people to integrate it into their environment. So as a company, we have already more or less decided to move for web services completely. And just 2 days ago, I was at a meeting with IATE Management Group, which is actually the compilation of all of the EU terminology, and the management group is the Council, the European Parliament, and the Commission. And they all decided to join our effort in testing a web support scenario for terminological control, quality control, and translation fill-up of terminology. frankly, I believe very much in this suggestion, and I feel it to be a future.
Thank you for this nice feedback.
Oh, sorry.
Another comment, piece of information, a bit of what you are saying, and a bit of what Stephen was asking yesterday, is done in the language grid infrastructure developed and NICT in Tokyo and Kyoto. It started in reality at the beginning to make it possible for a foreigner student to be integrated in the classroom and speak with other students, etc. And now this platform, which makes it possible to use at web services different dictionaries, terminologies, and different translation services that the user can choose. One of the applications is, for example, in hospitals, exactly what you were saying yesterday, to make it possible for a patient to speak with the doctor if the doctor speaks another language. It's somehow simpler, but it's not going far, as you are saying, but a bit of incorporation of some language technology as services in the web and standards like LMF also and so on.
Yeah, I think that's a very good remark, because this should not start from scratch. This really needs to incorporate initiatives like Clarine, for example, language resource initiatives like what you mentioned yesterday. The idea is just to bring this initiative closer to the web, to have this not presented as a service, for example, but within the browser, within the web technology itself. Yeah. There's several. Yeah.
So the idea of bringing it closer to the web seems to be attractive, but on the other hand, browsers already tended to become monstrous pieces of software. Yes. Isn't that also a danger, to put too much tasks on the shoulders of a browser?
That's a very good question, because I think if you look at the current version of the HTML specification, which is under development, it has several hundred pages. It is a monster. It's getting more a monster. So this is both a danger, but also a chance. The chance that if you want to create language technology for the web, that it doesn't happen ad hoc, where things lead to a scenario where nothing is able to be processed on such a device, for example. But because there are so many people working on this development, there are people, for example, from the mobile web community who are taking care that the HTML5 monster does not get too big, that there are scenarios where it works on mobile phones. Now this is really a good opportunity to bring these technologies in here right now, so that they are really then applicable for many devices, for many usage scenarios.
All right. Another question.
One of the problems in the localization industry is that there's a lot of talk about standardization, and there are even some specifications, but there's very little real actual practice of, following standards from the tools developers, and data tends to get isolated in silos, and how do you get people to actually follow the vision that you paint? It seems like there's lots of visions, but the problem is that there are too many visions. There isn't one real cohesive, common, framework that everybody stands up to.
Yeah. So one of the silos, or the main silo you mentioned, is, for example, SDL Trados. That's the main tool used for translation localization. We already implemented parts of this ITS technology which I mentioned. So way to go with path of more standardization, more interoperability between formats. So I would slightly disagree that there's no room for standardization. Of course, it takes a lot of time, but we're talking here about a 10-year schedule. So I think this is a good reason to have here a longer vision. The other point I want to make is, see on this slide, that we have more and more diversity, which is very hard to respond to with a silo solution. you cannot have STL Trados here on this device. You cannot in all situations have a service where STL Trados is just in the setting where you need it on some server. Everything gets easier when the components are standardized and can work just on the device in the languages which the web, in the technologies which the web itself provides. And that's the reason I think people will follow, because the needs are more and more specific, and the needs responsive with less and less silo solutions. That's also the reason why the linked data web takes off, because you have more and more people who want to say, I want to bring my own data on the web. I want to have my means of integrate that. And this, I think there's a way to get that for language technology as well.
All right, so thank you very much again, Felix Sasaki.
Thank you.
University of Applied Sciences, Potsdam.